He wasn't lost. He told them that twice. He could see lights in the distance, flat ground, open field. And then, in the middle of a sentence, he said, "Oh shit." Hours earlier, everything about that night had been completely normal. He'd been out with friends in a small Minnesota town, and just after midnight, he started the drive back to his dorm. The roads were empty, but nothing felt unsafe. There was no storm, no urgency, no reason to remember the drive at all. At some point during the drive, he made a wrong turn, and this part is important. It wasn't dramatic. He didn't realize he was lost. He didn't panic. He just ended up on roads he didn't recognize and assumed he'd figure it out in a few minutes. Eventually, his car was stuck, not because of a crash, not because anything broke. Somehow, he was stuck in a ditch. The car wasn't damaged. He wasn't hurt. And at that moment, this didn't feel like a problem, just an inconvenience. So, he did what most people do. He picked up his phone and he called his parents. When they answered, he told them he was fine. He explained calmly that his car was stuck somewhere on rural back roads. He said the car was okay. He said, "Don't worry. He just needed a ride." His parents agreed immediately. This wasn't unusual. This wasn't alarming. It sounded like a simple favor. As they talked, he mentioned something else. He said he could see lights in the distance, town lights, and instead of waiting by the car, he decided he would start walking toward them. This is one of those decisions that makes sense in the moment. He wasn't injured. He wasn't scared. He thought he knew where he was going. So his parents got in their car and they stayed on the phone with him as they drove to meet him. This part matters. They never hung up. At first, the conversation was completely normal, casual, even light at times. There was no panic in his voice, no fear. If you were listening to the call, there would have been nothing to warn you that something was wrong. But as the minutes passed, small details began to feel off. He described the roads around him. The directions didn't quite match where his parents were driving. But this didn't raise alarms. Rural roads can be confusing. People misjudge distances all the time. But the longer they stayed on the phone, the more difficult it became to understand where he actually was. Still, no one said it out loud. He kept walking, and he sounded calm. As the call continued, the surroundings he described began to change. He talked about walking through open ground, then fences, then water. This is where the story quietly shifts, because now the environment he's describing doesn't match the picture anyone had in their mind. His parents tried to adjust their route. They turned around. They checked landmarks. But no matter what they did, they weren't getting any closer. And here's the unsettling part. The entire time, he stayed on the phone. Still calm, still talking. No fear, no urgency. At one point, he mentioned that he might be walking toward a river. He didn't sound worried. He said it casually, like an observation. Then, without warning, his tone changed. Not panic, not screaming, just a sudden break in normalcy. He said, "Oh shit," and the call went silent. There was no explanation, no sound of a struggle, just a dead line. His parents tried calling back immediately, straight to voicemail. They called again and again. Nothing. Even though the call had ended, his parents kept driving. They followed the last directions they had. They searched roads, fields, ditches. They expected to find him walking. They didn't. By morning, authorities were involved. Search teams were organized. This was no longer a simple pickup. The first thing searchers found was the car, and this is where the case becomes more confusing. The car wasn't where anyone thought it would be. It wasn't near the town he believed he was walking toward. It was miles away, in a completely different area. Searchers expanded the search radius. They used dogs. They combed fields, roads, creeks, and rivers. The dogs picked up his scent, and then, without explanation, they lost it. Abruptly. No footprints, no clothing, no signs of a struggle. Investigators considered the obvious explanations. Maybe he fell into water. Maybe he drowned. But the water levels were too low, and no remains were ever recovered. Others wondered if he fell into a hidden culvert or a ditch. But again, no evidence. Every theory almost works until you realize what's missing. There is no physical proof of what happened after those two last words. Years passed. Searches continued periodically. Nothing was found. His parents replayed the call in their minds. The calm tone, the casual conversation, the moment everything stopped. This wasn't a disappearance that happened in the wilderness. This didn't happen during a storm. This happened while he was talking to his parents. To this day, no one knows what happened after the call ended. No one knows what he saw. No one knows what caused him to say those final words. He didn't vanish without warning. He vanished while someone was listening. His name was Brandon Swanson, and somewhere out there, the white pines are still standing, still watching, still keeping their secrets.